Good Monday morning, everybody. This is the Horn Takes podcast. You're very rough around the edges. Texas sports talk destination. I'm your host, and I'm Sean Redfern. It's Exaggeration Monday. And the only thing I could think of the entire time I was watching the Texas Longhorns and the Houston Cougars game unfold was, what the hell was that? Texas narrowly escapes a game on the road at Houston with a 31-24 win. Not Texas's best football game, to be sure. And if you look at just overall the game itself and the circumstances of the game, certainly not a great game for Texas Longhorn fans. Quinn Ewers goes out in the second half with what at the time appeared to be a shoulder injury. A lot of people thought it happened on the scramble. And honestly, it's really not quite clear where it happened. We'll do an absurd look back at the 4 keys to victory and Sean's big questions of the game. We'll talk about message board and Twitter meltdowns. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we know after 8 weeks of college football. Check us out Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Most of the time at 12 noon. We've got some scheduling conflicts this week, so we're going early today. We're going to have to go really early tomorrow. But generally, we're 12 noon Central Time. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Listen to the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, or you can find it at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. So the big elephant in the room, besides just not a great performance by the Texas Longhorns, is Quinn Ewers' injury. There was a whole lot of speculation, all day yesterday. Everybody on Twitter, everybody on college football message boards, at least the Texas ones, wanting to know what's going on with Quinn Ewers. What's the injury? How bad is the injury? How long is he going to be out? Oh, my God, it's the end of the world. Oh, my God, we're going to be fine. Nothing official came out from the University of Texas. And oddly enough, the University of Texas did not release a post-game press conference from Steve Sarkisian. And to my knowledge, that's the first time that has ever happened. I don't know whether they just canceled the press conference altogether. I really don't know. There hasn't been a single peep about why that did not go down or why it hasn't been posted. Generally, it gets posted sometime Sunday morning up on their YouTube account. Just not one this time. I don't know. So there's not a whole lot of information about Quinn Ewers and his injury. There was a source that came out yesterday afternoon. I believe it was Anwar Richardson. Had a source that said it's a grade 2 AC joint sprain in the right shoulder, the throwing shoulder, which is bad. Last year, he hurt his clavicle on the non-throwing side, and he was out for 4 weeks. You talk to doctors, you go look it up on WebMD. Recovery for an AC separation can be anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. I had an AC separation my freshman year in college, the very first day of pads. I got welcomed to college football real quick, and I was out for 2 weeks. And I think the interesting thing is about the AC separation, when it initially happens, there's just a ton of pain, obviously, and then weakness, like almost like everything's intact, but it just doesn't want to function. It's really weak. It's very tender. Just a certain type of movement could really give you a lot of pain. And so obviously there's a healing process for that. But I think generally past the first couple weeks, it's a pain tolerance issue. And for a quarterback, that's got to throw the football, I just can't imagine that pain tolerance being an easy thing to play through. I'm not saying it's impossible. We won't know. I don't think the University of Texas is going to release any information about this whatsoever. We didn't even know Jahdae Barron wasn't going to play in this game. So Steve Sarkisian's very tight-lipped about what's going on with his injury situations, generally speaking. So I think the question now for Texas Longhorns is who plays QB, and I honestly do not understand why this is a question. Who played quarterback when Quinn Ewers came out of the game? It was Malik Murphy. Wasn't Arch Manning. I don't think there was ever a chance it was going to be Arch Manning. I think if Arch Manning was the guy, and by the way, there's been lots of discussion, lots of rumor mill about Arch Manning catching up to Malik Murphy through this fall camp and through this football season in terms of development. And there's even been talk about he's past Malik Murphy and he's really the second string quarterback. Lay all that shit to bed, folks. Arch Manning is not the second string quarterback at the University of Texas. If he were, he would have definitely come into that game during a 3-point game where the game was in doubt. So I think we can squash all the Arch Manning stuff. And that's not hate against Arch Manning whatsoever. It's just the simple truth. Malik Murphy's been here. He's been in the system for 2 years now. He's ahead of Arch Manning, and that's okay. Settle the fuck down, Arch Manning fanboys. I mean, dude, I'm glad Arch Manning's at Texas, but holy shit. There's threads all over the internet, and none of them just say Murphy. Murphy and Arch. What could we do with Murphy / Arch? Guys, Arch Manning's not playing. If Arch Manning plays this Saturday against BYU, I think that's a problem. I think that indicates an issue with Malik Murphy. Just my take. I don't know. We'll find out for sure. I think the other question for Texas fans, besides who's going to be the QB, which again, ridiculous question. The other question is like, what does this do for our season prospects? And this has been a year of big expectations for Texas Longhorn fans. Started out 6-1. Started out 5-1. Then we go to Houston, play that game. So Texas is sitting 6-1. Everything's ahead of them. All of their goals still there. They can still play in the Big 12 championship game. They're the highest ranked one-loss team in the country, which means if Oklahoma slips up, they're going to jump up Oklahoma. They'll probably jump a lot of teams that slip up that are still ahead of them. So the college football playoff is still something that's very attainable by this Texas team. So the question is the season lost or we bust? Well, a couple of things. We don't know. We don't know the severity of Quinn Ewers' injury. Just my 2 cents. If it wasn't a big deal, they'd already have said something about it. It's probably a big deal. Like I would not be surprised if Quinn Ewers does not play in the regular season this season. It also wouldn't surprise me if he trots out on the field in 2 or 3 weeks. But just kind of knowing how Steve Sarkisian is, how he's handled certain discussions of injuries and certain non-discussions of injuries, I think the silence is deafening on this whole Quinn Ewers thing. So let's assume, for the sake of argument, that Quinn Ewers is at least out 3 to 4 weeks. Let's assume Quinn Ewers does not play again until what? We got BYU, Kansas State, TCU, and Iowa State. So let's assume he doesn't play in those 4 games. And the last game or the next opportunity for him to play is Texas Tech. Is the season lost? I don't think so. I really like Malik Murphy, and I've said this a million times on this show. Malik Murphy is as talented, if not more talented, with his arm than Quinn Ewers. Strength-wise, it's not even close. Malik Murphy can throw a freaking football through a brick wall, which is an asset, but it can also be a detriment. We saw him try to like blaze one to Adonai Mitchell on Saturday. When all he really needed to do is just get the ball out in front of him and let him run underneath it. So he's got some things to learn. But I think there's nothing this kid can't do physically that Quinn Ewers can do. For me, the only concern with Malik Murphy, as talented as he is, and dude, I cannot stress enough how much I like Malik Murphy and have always been on the Malik Murphy sort of bandwagon about not necessarily, definitely not, oh, he needs to be playing ahead of Ewers. Definitely not, any crazy shit like that. Just I'm super excited to see Malik Murphy play. And we haven't got to see that this year, really. Now we're going to get to see it, and we're going to get to see it when it matters. So I think as a Texas fan and as a Malik Murphy bandwagoner, for me, that's exciting. I could see why it's also horrifying. Because the only concern here for Malik Murphy for me is just experience, game experience. Look at the difference between Quinn Ewers last year and Quinn Ewers this year in terms of his effectiveness. It's night and day. And Quinn Ewers didn't get talented over the summer. He didn't get more talented over the summer. He just has a lot of experience. There's probably not another position in the country where that matters more than the quarterback position. So I don't think the season is lost. This is one of those deals where you better just be glad you had a really good quarterback room. You better be glad Steve Sarkisian was able to impress upon Malik Murphy something that kept Malik Murphy out of this whole transfer portal circus that went on after the spring game. Something about the University of Texas and Steve Sarkisian, Malik Murphy likes, and he says, I want to stay. This is where I know I'm going to get developed. And look, we've seen this before, man. We've seen starting quarterbacks get hurt, and we've seen backup quarterbacks go on runs. So by no means is this season a loss. It's probably a little bit tougher now, though. Going back to Sean's big questions of the game headed into this Houston Cougars matchup, does Texas bounce back mentally, emotionally, and physically from the Red River shootout loss? Sure as fuck looked like it early on. God almighty, it was 21-0 in the blink of an eye. And then it seemed like the team just completely lost focus. The coaching staff just completely lost focus. We saw a really, really stupid fake field goal attempt. With an opportunity to go up by 3 scores. And again, folks, I may confuse some things because this is drunk Sean talking. I haven't rewatched the game yet. I'll rewatch the game this evening, and we'll have a more legitimate, more thought-provoking analysis of the game for tomorrow's show on the After Action Review. This is all just me pouring my thoughts out yesterday morning after I woke up. Had some breakfast, drank some coffee. So maybe it wasn't 21-0. Maybe it was 21-7. I don't know. I feel like when they went down there to kick that field goal, it was 21-7. They had an opportunity to go up by 3 scores, and instead, they ran the dumbest fucking fake field goal play I've ever seen in my life. There wasn't even anybody down the field to catch a pass. Like they thought Bert Auburn was going to outrun people to the corner and pick up a first down. And that's what I'm talking about when I say the staff lost focus. And you got to think about what message that sends to the team when not only you lose focus like that, but you call something like that and it doesn't work. Everybody's always bitching about, everybody's always got something to say about, these off timing plays, the fakes and stuff. The one he ran against OU, everybody loved it because it worked, right? I get that. And people will say, well, if it would have worked, you wouldn't have had anything to say about it. No, I would have said it worked, but it was still real fucking stupid. And the play itself was dumb. I'm of the opinion if it's fourth and whatever and you want to go for it, put your offense out. Why would you be more comfortable putting that type of a play, that type of situation in the hands of your holder and your freaking kicker than you would your offense? It just doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me. Of course, they don't pick it up. Then the Texas defense starts to fail in these critical moments again. Talked about it all the way back to the Red River shootout. Let them score at the end of the first half. Let them score at the beginning of the second half. Let them score at the end of the second half. Can't do it. Can't give up third and long. So they try this dumbass fake field goal. It doesn't work, and then the team is just absolutely. And I don't know that it was necessarily because of the fake field goal that the team was deflated, but the team at this point was just completely not in this football game anymore. And real quick, they ended up in a dogfight with a team they never should have been in a dogfight with. Well, Jordan Whittington make it 2 in a row, and we were talking about, man, Jordan Whittington had a big game against OU. I felt like coming into this game, he had an opportunity to have a big game as well. I'm sure he blocked his ass off, but he made absolutely no impact in the passing game. I think maybe he caught the ball one time. The defensive line dominate the line of scrimmage like they did through the first 4 games of the season. I think they were pretty good against the run. I thought they got pressure in the pass rush. They just got no sacks. I mean, like, I honestly don't know if they got a sack in the whole game. To be fair, the defensive ends got held egregiously in this game. I mean, dude, we used to bitch about Texas Tech's offensive tackles holding defensive ends. The Houston Cougars offensive tackles put in a clinic on holding in this game. And I am like, we'll talk about this later. We're not going to get into this right now. So, no, the defensive line did not dominate the line of scrimmage like they did through the first 4 games. Question number 4 was, which injured players come back? Man, it's been a rough last few weeks for the Texas Longhorns from an injury perspective. You have Chris Ross and Cole Hudson. They've been out since Wyoming. I don't think either one of those guys played a snap in this game. Ryan Watts missed the Red River shootout. He did not play in this game. And I'm just naming, these are all guys that contribute a lot to this team. These aren't like there's other guys I'm not going to list here, and I'm not going to list them because they don't play. So them being hurt doesn't really matter. JT Sanders was injured against KU and missed a lot of the Red River shootout. He played, had a nice catch, still cannot block worth the fuck. If I have to see JT Sanders cross the formation and try to block a defensive end one more time, I might absolutely throw up. I do not know why they ask him to do that. He cannot do it. I don't know that he's ever been able to do. And I'm not trying to be negative against JT. I'm just saying, like, to me, at this point, it's a schematic problem. He has done everything he can to tell you, I cannot do this effectively. And you just keep doing it. And it costs you every fucking time you do it. They got sacked in the Houston game because of it. He got sacked in OU because of it. Stop fucking asking JT Sanders to come across the formation and try to block a defensive end. In the pass game. Jake Majors injured in the Red River Shootout. Started and looked fine. I'm super surprised about that. I don't know what the injury was. I don't know what knee injury heals. I don't know what knee injury takes you out of a game, and then 2 weeks later, you're running around like it didn't even happen. And maybe it was a high ankle sprain, not 100% sure. Some sort of lower leg injury. Let's just say that. I sprained my ankle bad like 2 times in my life, and I wasn't playing no football 2 weeks later. I tweaked my ankles a whole lot, and I never came out of games when that happened. So again, to me, there's like almost no in between on this. You're either hurt so bad that you can't play, which it's surprising that you would be back after 2 weeks, or you just tweaked it and it hurt like a motherfucker when you did it, and you're not comfortable the rest of that game, but you can still play. Like the pain is not bad enough, and it's structurally sound. I don't know. Jake Majors made it back into the lineup. Good for Jake. CJ Baxter finally looked close to 100%. I thought that was awesome. He didn't limp a single limp in this game. Jalen Catalong, who we forgot to mention last week as we were talking about this. He's been out since OU, didn't play a snap. Jahdae Barron, AWOL. Haven't heard a word about Jahdae Barron being hurt, but he doesn't play for most of this game. I think he played a little bit in the second half. That's what I was talking about with his sneaky Sarkisian. To be fair, nobody asked him about Jahdae Barron. I think if someone would have asked him about Jahdae Barron, he might have said something. Who knows? Ethan Burke looked like he re-injured a knee in this game. Jet Bush limped off the field against Houston. Alfred Collins missed time in this Houston game. Gavin Holmes missed time in this Houston game. All the injuries. So who fucking knows? This team was really looking to come out of a bye week healthy, and it doesn't look like that's what happened. They got healthy in some spots, got nicked up in other spots, and this game was just an absolute ass whip from a injury perspective. Our 4 keys and a prediction for this Houston game. Put in 4 quarters of football. Key number 1. And this is the fucking key. This should be a key for every game. This should not ever have to be called out specifically as a key. This should be what you do every single game. You should play 4 quarters. You got to be there for 60 minutes, guys. You got to be there for 60 minutes, coaching staff. You might as well play the whole 60 minutes. That did not happen again. I think the only time they've played 60 minutes this season was against Alabama. And it's a little bit different psychological situation than any of the other games they've played. When Texas decides they got to play up, when they feel like they're an underdog and they don't have a chance, they're going to play 60 minutes. But the problem is when you have a roster as good as Texas's and you play as good as Texas does this season, you're not playing a lot of teams that you shouldn't beat. You're not playing a lot of teams where you're going to be the underdog or you're going to feel I mean, for fuck's sake, they don't have a quarterback. They're playing a 5-2 BYU team this Sunday or Saturday rather. And they opened up as a 20.5 point favorite. Make it make sense. One of the things Steve Sarkisian and this coaching staff have to figure out, if they want this season to go the way they think it can, and they want to take that next step as a program, is how to get this team to play 4 quarters, regardless of the opponent, regardless of the circumstances of the game. Key number 2 featured Jonathan Brooks. As far as I could tell, this happened a lot more in this game than it's happened in any other game this season. Again, I haven't rewatched the game. This is all my thoughts from a live drunk perspective. So it's highly possible that this didn't happen, but I felt like it did while I was watching this game on Saturday. Get to Donovan Smith before Donovan Smith gets to you. I thought they did a really good job in the running game against him. I feel like Donovan Brooks only got positive yards on maybe one run, and it wasn't a lot, 6, 7, 8 yards maybe. Certainly nothing big. On the flip side, they were not able to affect him much in the passing game. So I'd have to give that one a push. So right now we're sitting at 1 for 2 with a push. Then our fourth key was protect Quinn Ewers, and I think they did a decent job, man. I mean, he wasn't under a lot of pressure. He did get sacked at least a couple times, I'm pretty sure. So I thought the offensive line did a okay job of protecting him. I wouldn't call it like a win. I wouldn't call it a loss. That might be a push too. I'll tell you this though, Quinn Ewers needs to learn how to protect himself. I don't know, and again, I don't. There's no official word, so nobody technically knows in the public which play he got hurt on. Some say it was a sack. Some think it was the play where he scrambled and got hit really hard. Doesn't matter. He's got to learn to protect himself. He's got to learn how to slide. Dude, you weigh 195 pounds. And I know to a lot of people, 195 pounds seems really big. It is not. On a college football field and on a D1 college football field, 195 pounds, not big. And then you look at the build of that one. Like, okay, so Deuce Vaughn, 195 pounds, looks big as shit because he's like 5'5" or 5'6". Quinn Ewers, 6'1", 6'2", 195 pounds. He's like skinny. He doesn't need to be taking shots like that. He's got to figure out how to protect himself. Our prediction for this game, we said Texas rolls. They're not going to be able to handle us on either side of the line of scrimmage. Texas rolls 42-17. Obviously, that's not what happened. Texas, what did they do? I don't even know what you would call it. They stumbled to 31-20 or 31-24. Just some random ass Texas at Houston thoughts. I'm sure these are things that just went through my mind as the game was happening. The back end of the defense it's just terrible. It's confused. It's unathletic at points. It's out of position. Some of these guys need to sit. And I get it. They're kids. They're trying their best. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but some of these guys just can't play. And usually when I'm being negative, I'm not gonna name these kids' names, and I'm not gonna do that right now. But there are a couple of guys that are playing on the back end of this secondary that just shouldn't be getting any kind of significant time on the field. The soft coverage and critical moments of the game is terrible. It's ass. They need to stop doing it. I don't understand why the game plan is sit back, let the guy have time, and throw the ball to make easy throws. There is nothing easier than just throwing a ball into a hole where one of your guys is standing. And there's not going to be anything contested about that play. And you can tell me all you want. It's just the players not executing it, and that's fine. I don't give a shit. If they can't execute it, stop doing it. Texas defense forced 2 turnovers in this game, and probably that was the difference in the game. And if you really count that, I mean, I think you always got to count turnover on downs. Turnover on downs late was huge. So to me, the Texas defense in this game was kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde. They did some really good stuff, and then just some really piss poor stuff. I still feel like we're underutilizing the running game. You got Jonathan Brooks, you got CJ Baxter, you got Jaden Blue, you got Keelan Robinson, you got Savion Red. You got 5 dudes that arguably, and I don't even say arguably, you got 5 dudes that could go to other D1 schools and start. Not all D1 schools, not maybe the best D1 schools, but you've got 5 guys in your running back room that could go find a home in D1 football and be the starter. That's a rotation I'd like to see. Just fucking wear people out. Bring one of them in for 4 or 5 plays. Bring the next one in for 4 or 5 plays. Do that over and over again. And obviously, I'm not advocating to not throw the ball. Quinn Ewers had an amazing game chunking the ball around the park again. Quinn Ewers' maturation and his development as a quarterback really over just about a year. Phenomenal. So I'm certainly not saying we should just dump the run, or we should just dump the pass. We should turn into 1995 Nebraska. Not saying that. I'm just saying you can run the ball on a lot of these teams way more than you attempt to run the ball. And the last I checked, 6 points is 6 points, regardless of how it got in the end zone. Sark gets too damn cute. He knows he's too cute. He calls it out in the press conference, and yet he goes and is more cute again. And there is nothing wrong with making mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. We are none of us human. I mean, we are all humans. None of us are perfect. None of us are infallible. But when you just keep making the same mistake, even after you've pointed out that it was a mistake over and over, that's a problem. You built and you're in the process of building like a really, really good roster. Why are we resorting to cute little trick plays like all the time? I'm good with getting something on paper and making somebody think about it. I am a fan of running those things when you've got a decent lead to extend that lead, let the players have fun. I'm down with all that shit. I get it. Maybe that's what he was thinking with the fake field goal. Maybe he was thinking, we got a good lead. The team's still playing good. Maybe that was the mindset. I just, again, if you're going to go for it on 4th down, put the offense on the field. Those are the guys that can go do offense. Bert Auburn is not an offensive guy. He's a kicker. Pass from your punter to the freaking place kicker should never be ranked ahead of, hey, let me just put my offense out there in terms of confidence. I thought another thing that was interesting, I saw some stuff after the game. Maybe they did have a presser. I don't know. There was some quote from Sark after this game about Houston giving them a different defensive look than they've seen out of Houston. We weren't expecting this. We weren't expecting Houston to do this because they haven't done it before. Well, when are you going to start expecting it? Because every single team has done it. This 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 defensive backs. They're all doing it to you. They've been doing it to you since last season. A lot of people won't realize this, but early in that game, Houston was in man coverage a lot. They were in a more traditional 4-man front. A lot of man coverage. I don't know why, but that's what they did, and they got fucking torched. That's why it was 21 points really, really fast for Texas. So when something's not working, you make an adjustment, right? And that's exactly what the Houston defensive staff did. And I don't know whether they put it in. Surely they had to put it in for this week because, I mean, I don't think you could just draw that up on the sideline and go, here's what you go do. But after that, man, it was all little short dink and dunk stuff, and Texas just couldn't get it down the field consistently. I think Steve Sarkisian needs to just go ahead and expect teams to run that defense against them at some point during games. At some point, if you're kicking the shit out of people, they're going to go to 3 down linemen and drop 8. And you know what? If they do that, you ought to be able to run the ball down their freaking throats. Outside power plays, outside zone plays, all of that should be there against that type of defensive front. Blocking assignments are all rule-based anyways, guys. Like, unless something's changed since I played, which is possible, but I can't imagine it's regressed. Even in high school, teams did different things up front that you hadn't seen or you didn't practice all week. You just used your rules that you've been learning all season to decide who blocks who. Same shit in college when I played. He needs to find something that this team can do against that defense. And when he recognizes that that's what's happening, he needs to go to that. I feel like he just doesn't. He is way too stubborn with his game plan. And so you can throw these wrinkles in against him. And he's still running the game plan for the thing he knew you were going to do, not what you just threw at him that he didn't know you're going to do. Crossing routes would tear that shit up. Angle routes by the running backs would tear that shit up. Should be able to pass protect on it all day long. It's 3 freaking defensive linemen. Occasionally, they'll bring pressure. Okay, same thing. It's all rules-based. Follow your rules. The officiating in this game was just absolute horrible on both ways. I know that the Houston fans and the rest of college football are all spun up about this spot thing. To be perfectly honest, I thought he got it. Just watching the game live, drunk. Drunk Sean thinks he got it. But you know what? They didn't even review it as far as I know. I don't know. There was another spot earlier in the game where Houston had the ball. The dude's foot is out of bounds like 6 yards ahead of the first down marker, and they got a first down on it. I have no idea how that happened. Personal foul on H&ll was complete fucking garbage. His own guy tackled his legs out from under him, and he barely even touched the guy. Holding, dude. There was a play. It was a 3rd down. Texas had Houston backed up. They ended up converting this 3rd down. There's a picture from behind the goalposts. 3 Texas defensive linemen are getting like mugged. Not like, oh, I grabbed inside the shoulder pads. I'm talking like mugged. Hand, like arm around the neck. hands completely ripping jersey off. Just come on, man. And I'm not an advocate of the officials being such a big part of the game that it slows the game. But if somebody is holding like that, you have to fucking penalize them for it. You have to. Two penalties all night against Houston. One of them was a holding call, I believe, which I don't know what that motherfucker must have done to somebody. But they declined it. They stopped him anyway. And then the other was when a Houston player ripped Terrence Brooks' helmet off by the face mask after the play. So they couldn't possibly not see that one. And I'm not trying to be sore. I hate officials. I've been hating officials for the last 2 seasons. I've been hating them longer than that, but I've been doing this show for a couple of seasons now. And I am sick of watching officials just absolutely suck ass at their jobs. And Saturday was just an abomination across the board. And both teams, both coaching staffs, the Big 12 itself should freaking be embarrassed and should be furious at the just shit job that their officiating crews continue to do week after week. Saw a lot of message board and Twitter meltdowns over the weekend. I learned over time to stay away from message board posting during game days. I'm a fanatic, y'all. I'm a fanatic, man. I'm emotional about it. To me, there's two Seans. I've told you all this. There's fanatical during the game Sean that's usually drinking, highly emotional. And then there's like analysis Sean that doesn't usually kick in for like 2 or 3 days later. So I've learned to stay away from message board posting. I will not do it anymore. But the late Saturday night and early Sunday morning reading of these things is like gold. You got the always negative people that everybody attacks for always being negative. You got the always positive dude that can figure out, can spin and silver line like anything. And then you got normal people. And I think the normal people are the ones that are probably pretty emotional while they're watching the game. And if they wrote down everything that they were thinking while they were watching the game, people would come back, on Sunday and late Saturday evening and they get tore up about it because it'd probably be stupid. And then there's like the interactions between these three groups. You got the positives and the negatives just are constantly at each other's throats. And they're too stupid to realize that like they're both stupid. And the normal people just kind of get caught up in the mix. Like a normal person could say something that could be perceived as negative, and all of a sudden they're a negative bedwetter, Nelly wouldn't want to be in a foxhole with you person. Or they might say something that, positive. And then there's Sunshine Pumper and all these other things, man. Message boards are the most ridiculous thing. I love them. Don't get me wrong. Twitter's just an absolute cesspool. Like it's almost embarrassing that humans behave that way. That's what Twitter is. Twitter is like, it's like junior high. And sometimes you step back and go, man, that was like an adult that said that. And he was serious. Speaking of Twitter, Emmanuel Acho with one of the most horrible, stupid, brain dead takes ever, which is saying a lot because Emmanuel Acho says a lot of stupid shit. I know he's a Longhorn. He was a good Longhorn, but he's fucking dumb. You know what, though? I don't think he's actually dumb. I think he's just figured out that if he'll say stupid shit, he'll stay relevant and he'll get clicks. But he says Caleb Williams should just sit out the remainder of the 2023 football season. as a business decision because he can't win the Heisman now, and his team's not going to go to the playoffs. Man, this whole man, I get it, man. Football is like a business now, and you have to look out for yourself. But this whole like abandon your team, piss on your fan base, you know, for bowl games is bad enough. And now we're gonna advocate for these fucking kids that when the season's over and you can't reach any reasonably high goals, like I can't win the Heisman now. I guess I'll just fucking quit. Oh, we're not going to go to the playoffs now, so I guess I'll just fucking quit. That's really the message. That's the message we want to send. Encouraging kids to only care about themselves and abandon their teams and their fans and their coaching staffs is not good for the sport. We're always hear about, oh, this is good for the sport. That's good for the sport. That bullshit right there is not good for the sport. So I hope Emmanuel Acho like was just saying some shit for clicks. Or maybe he was like super high. I don't know. But it's pretty fucking embarrassing that a guy that's played sports and has been on lots of teams and has been on some successful teams thinks it's cool to just quit on your team because you can't reach an individual goal and because the team now isn't going to meet a team goal. What do we know about college football after 8 weeks? Ohio State's got a damn good defense. Penn State has a fantastic defense. USC has no defense. They let a freaking backup to the backup, I think, beat them Saturday night. And I think after all the doom and gloom, and this is certainly not a complete list, but these are just some things I jotted down. After all the doom and gloom about this Alabama team after they lost to Texas, looked so bad against South Florida, they're one win away against LSU from probably playing in the SEC championship again. And I said it a few weeks ago, like everybody's dogging this win by Texas over Alabama and saying this is the worst Alabama team ever. They're probably going to wind up in the SEC championship game again. Last thing we know is everybody's vulnerable. There's not a complete like dominant team in college football this year. So down the stretch is going to be pretty exciting. Mailbag question. Keith from Pittsburgh, Texas wants to know when the players and coaches are going to quit coasting and play 4 quarters. Can Sark and staff prepare them to play 4 quarters? This is obviously one of our keys. Pretty emotional about the fact that they can't do this. The crazy thing is, in a lot of ways, this team has grown up since Sark became the head coach, and they do a lot of the stuff they need to be doing. And I feel like, again, this is kind of the next step in their evolution. They got to learn to play 4 quarters. I don't know if Sark and his staff can do that. I don't know what the problem is. I think the problem is probably human nature, which is we're 21-0 right now. We're beating the dog shit out of this team. I'm not as focused as I once was. Or if you're Sark, I'm going to try to get something on film. I don't know. You can't fix the problem unless you know the problem. I'll never know the exact problem. I kind of figure that's probably what it is. And if that's the case, the staff has to recognize that, and the staff has to do a better job of keeping these kids focused throughout the game. Football games are long. 4 hours. There has to be a lot of coaching going on in the middle of a football game to keep those guys in the game. Thanks for the question, Keith from Pittsburgh, Texas. Tomorrow we'll do the after-action review on those Houston Cougars. We'll have our Week 8 Trace Ultra Games recap. We went 3-0 this week. Boom. We'll do the quick and dirty on these BYU Cougars. We'll have some random college football thoughts, I'm sure. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Please follow and subscribe. Will not cost you guys a thing. I appreciate the support. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys get hooked. Have a good Monday.